Shalom, my Israelite brothers and sisters. So today's lesson is going to be entitled, Should We Love Our Enemies? I'm doing this lesson because of a confusion among some of our Hebrew Israelites. You have some of our Israelites who are teaching that the Gentiles outside of Israel can be grafted in as equals. And they are calling these Gentiles Israelites, and they're telling them that they will be equals with the already chosen people of the Most High in the kingdom. Now, the word of our Elohim makes it very clear the two types of enemies that we're going to have to be dealing with in this great awakening walk, Hebrews. And these two types of enemies are, one, the enemies who speak against the Most High and that seeks out to destroy Yah's chosen people. And two, the enemies that Yeshua told us to love and forgive. We're going to deal with both of them. And we're going to use our forefathers' method of study, how they studied the scriptures. Precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. That's the way we're going to do it, y'all. We're going to break it down verse by verse, and we're going to get into the scriptures. Now, let's talk about these enemies, these so-called enemies that are against the Most High and are going to try to seek out to destroy Yah's chosen people. Because remember, brothers and sisters, in order to know who our enemies are, we must know what their purpose is. So let's go to Psalms chapter 83. And I'm going to read verses 2 through 5. And it says, For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. You can't get no plainer than this, Hebrews. The word of the Most High makes it clear the purpose of our enemies. Now let's look at verse 3, where it says, They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Now let me ask y'all a question. How many of y'all ever heard of a think tank? Well, what is a think tank? Well, a think tank was started by Europeans, and basically it's when people get together and they sit down at a round table and they plan out the future outcome of a particular race of people. Let me give you an example. They'll plan out how the school should be ran. They'll plan out who should be medically vaccinated. They would sit down and plan the economical outcome of a community, or anything that has to do with keeping a particular race down at the bottom. And we are, the chosen people, are a prime example. How do you think all the drugs and the guns got into our communities? How do you think all this warfare, all this kind of stuff got into our communities? Black on black crime. This was all thought out from the very beginning. This was all planned. You had a bunch of European people who get together, sit down, and plan out the destruction of the so-called black race. And this has been going on for a very long time, y'all. Y'all can look this up and research it for yourself. Just don't take my word for it. But this thing is real. But you have these people who sit down and they plan out purposely our destruction and come up with all kind of ways to keep us at the bottom. So, in a nutshell, Hebrews, there goes your think tank lesson 101. All right, let's get another one that deals with the enemies of the Most High and his chosen people. Let's go to Malachi chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 4 through 5. And it says, Whereas Edom saith, We are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Does that sound familiar, y'all? Y'all remember the destruction of the temple in 70 AD when Tiberius went through with his crew and ramshacked the temple? There was no stone left upon one another. And it says, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, They shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, The Lord will be magnified from the border of Israel. Now, you look at Israel right now. There's so much war going on over there right now. They're constantly fighting back and forth with the Palestinians because it's not their land. It doesn't belong to neither one of them. And you look how war-torn that place is. And the Most High is getting ready to put us back in that land. So these people, they ramshacked our temple. They destroyed the temple. Did not the heathen steal our everything out of our temple? Our menorahs, our scripts, our paintings, writings? That's right. The so-called enemies of the Most High and his people. They did all that. And you can read the history of the 70 AD, how the temple was destroyed. And the Holy Hamashiach, he prophesied that was going to happen. Let's continue. Let's go to Revelation chapter 12. I'm going to read verse 17. And it says, "And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Elohim, and have the testimony of Yeshua." All right, let's look at this. Who is that red dragon that was wroth with the woman? And who was the woman? Well, when you read Revelation, the first chapter of Revelation says the revelation of Yeshua. So this is all about Yeshua. But this red dragon that is talking about here is talking about the Roman Empire during the time of Yeshua. Now remember, Yeshua and his mother, they had to flee to Africa because the Romans were trying to kill all the firstborns. It was a command that was put out by King Herod, and they were trying to kill all the firstborns. Well, it goes on to say, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. What does it mean when it says remnant of her seed? It's talking about this present day. It's talking about the future. That this dragon or race of people would continue to make war with Yah's chosen people. Now, who were the Romans back then? They were Europeans. Roman was part of the European nation. So who are the Romans today? They are the so-called European people who exist today, your so-called whites. Those are your descendants of the Roman Empire or your European states. Have we not read the history of our people being enslaved by the Europeans? Now, the Europeans weren't the only ones who enslaved us, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the whole point I wanted to make was the fact that the seed of these other nations are going to continue to oppress the seed of Yah's chosen people. All right, let's get another one. Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 27. "And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whether the Lord shall lead you." Now, this is a big one, y'all. So I want you to pay attention to the first part here, where it says, "And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations." Now, so-called blacks today, or your Negroes, are the only race of people who are scattered to the four corners of the earth. No matter where you go in this world, you're going to see a remnant of black people, so-called blacks. Why is that? Because it was a prophecy that was foretold by the Most High. He said that he would scatter us among the nations. So in other words, no matter where Negroes are today, we would be the minority no matter where you are. I think the blacks in America, they make up like 14%. It used to be 13, but I think it's 14% now. So everywhere in the nations across the world, blacks or so-called Negroes make up the very small portions. And it also says, "And ye shall be left few in number among the heathen." Well, who are the heathens that the Most High is talking about here? It's talking about the other nations outside of Israel, the enemies of the Most High and his chosen people. If you read the book, if you read 1 Kings, 2 Kings, Chronicles, you'll see how our forefathers dealt with the heathens, and how especially King David dealt with the heathens, because he didn't play around with them. But the heathens have always been at war with Yah's chosen people, always. It's never changed back then and still to this very day. So the heathens, they never had anything to do with the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They've always worshipped their idols, their false gods. And it's still no difference today. It's just now that they slapped Christianity in it, which is still a false idol. That's all it is. That's all Christianity is. It's false idol, because they still celebrate all the pagan days, your Christmas, New Year's, Halloween. All those pagan holidays are a part of Christianity. So it's no difference today. So who are the current day heathens today, and what race of people are they? Well, you're definitely not going to find European in the Bible. You're not going to find African American in the Bible. You're not going to find Chinese people in the Bible. You're not going to find Mexican in the Bible, and so forth. But however, the same races that existed back then still exist today. They just had a biblical name. Let me give you an example. Hamites were your so-called Africans. Your Israelites, or your so-called blacks today, Negroes spread to the four corners of the earth. Then you had your Edomites, your Japhites, your Moabites, who are your current day Asian people, and so forth. And you can do the research yourself and study that. And every nation at some point of Earth's history have enslaved so-called black people. And that's the facts. Let's go to Matthew 24 and verse 9. And it says, Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Now, a lot of people will read this and think that it's talking about everybody. No, it's only referring to Yah's chosen people. Now remember, we just read in Deuteronomy 4:27 that Yah's chosen people will be scattered among the nations. Not just one place, but amongst all the nations. Now, what race of people are the most hated among all the races of people? You guessed it. So-called blacks, so-called Negroes, scattered to the four corners of the earth. Now, let's start getting real detailed. Now, let's start naming these races of people. Now, remember, I said earlier that the so-called blacks, Negroes, were at one time enslaved by all the other nations outside of Israel. Now, especially white people, they like to say, well, I had nothing to do with that. That was my forefathers. Well, guess what? You are the seed of your fathers. And so, therefore, if the children of Israel had to pay for the sins of their fathers, guess what? You're going to pay for the sins of your fathers. That's just the way it's going to be. Now, let's name some of these races. Your so-called whites today, or your Europeans, or the biblical name which people know them as the nation of Edom. White folks have been the worst of our enemies for the last 400 years. And everybody knows that. Even white people know that. I mean, that's no secret. And we've been treated the worst among whites. You look at your Arabs, or your biblical name, which would be Ishmaelites. And did y'all know that there are black folks that are still being sold into slavery in Sudan, but they've been keeping it on the down low. But it's going on as we speak. Your so-called Africans, or your Hamites, they hate us. They had us in slavery too during Egypt, 400 years. You look at your Asians, they hate us. We were slaved under them too. Guess who built the Wall of China, the Great Wall of China? It was so-called Negroes who built it. Do your research. Mexicans, they hate us. Folks from India, they hate us. Your Puerto Ricans, they hate us. Every nation of people on the face of this earth, they hate black people. That is no secret, y'all. That's just common sense knowledge. I mean, if you're alive on this earth and you're breathing and you're seeing, how can you not see that? It's just so prevalent around us. But this was prophesied, that we would be hated among all the nations. And this is prophecy fulfilling itself. But guess what? Here's the good news. The Most High is getting ready to deliver his people. And I truly believe that a lot of these heathens are waking up, and they're starting to become aware and realize, hey, this ain't no game. These are really the Most High's chosen people. They're starting to frizz it up a little bit and starting to worry, because I see a lot of them coming out the woodworks, making videos, talking about we're the true children of Israel. But hey, the word of the Most High tells us that we're the true children of Israel. And I don't need anybody to tell me that I'm the true children of Israel. I already know that from the word of the Most High. So no matter where we're scattered in this earth, we are the most discriminated against, and we're the most hated. I uploaded a video on my page. Y'all check it out when y'all get a chance. It's called The Scientific Agenda to Destroy Black People. The other nations have been trying to destroy us for the longest. But there's a reason why they can't. Because we are still the apple of the Most High's eye. The Most High has not cast away his people, as it says in Romans chapter 11, verses 1 through 2. You know, the heathens were very successful in pretty much wiping out the Native Americans. They were also successful pretty much wiping out all the originally Australians. But they won't be successful in trying to wipe out the Negroes, because you know why? They're going to be destroyed before they can. And guess what? The Most High is going to take his people, he's going to deliver us, and he's going to put us back in our land. And we're already seeing the plagues of Egypt falling all over this earth. And these California fires are just the least of these heathens' worries. Oh, you're going to see a lot more destruction upon this earth here shortly. So let's go ahead and fine-tune the enemies of the Most High's chosen people. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. And it says, "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee." All right, Israel, let's make one thing clear here. The Most High is distinctively telling us and showing us who our enemy is in this verse. So let's define this a little bit. It says that he shall send thee against thee in hunger. Now let's talk about that. Who owns the restaurants? Who owns the grocery stores? It's not so-called black people. Then it goes on to say, and in thirst, who owns the water reservoirs? Who owns the water containers? Who controls the water movement? It ain't so-called black people. And then it goes on to say, and in nakedness, who owns the clothing business? Who designs the clothing? It's not so-called black people. And then it goes on to say, and in want of all things. Now, do we own the hospitals? Do we own the banks? No, we don't. Do we own the gas stations? No, we don't. So what race of people owns all this stuff? Your so-called white people? They own a lot of the stuff. Your so-called Asian people? They own a lot of the stuff. Your Arabs? They not own the gas stations. So all the other race of people own stuff except for us. And it makes it clear here in this verse that the Most High said that we would have to go to our enemies. Get that? That's the key word right there. Our enemies. So the same people that we have to go to get food, to get clothes, to get loans, to get money, to go to hospitals, to go fill our cars up with gas. The Most High is saying that these are our enemies. We got to make that clear, because I'm not making this up. Because some people are going to watch this video and they're going to try to say it's racist. But guess what? I did not write the scriptures. This was written by our forefathers way before we came on the scene. So when you go and sit down at that and eat at that Mexican restaurant, which is about every 5 blocks when you're driving in the U.S., you can think about your enemies. When you go into that grocery store, pick up your food, you can think about your enemies. Whenever you go fill that car up with that gas, you can think about your enemies. Whenever you got to go to the store, go to the mall, get clothes, or whatever you got to get, you got to go to that bank and get that loan, you can think about your enemies. Because the Bible is making it clear that our enemies are going to be the ones that we're going to be going to in the want of all things. So the word of the Most High makes it very clear that we would be living in the land of our enemies. And you know, there are so many verses on this. I can be here for 8 hours straight, y'all, just telling you about verses and verses after verses, dealing with the enemies of the Most High's chosen people. But this is where you come in at. This is where you do your research. This is where you study. Remember, the Bible says, study to show thyself approval unto God. My job is to basically just give you the word as it is, and then you take that and you research it for yourself. Never take my word for anything. Just go back and restudy. You can go back through the videos and study. But the more you study, the better you're going to know this word. All right, Israel, let's recap a little bit. So in the beginning, I stated that there are 2 types of enemies that are spoken about in the word of the Most High. It was the enemies who speak against the Most High and who seeks to destroy Yah's chosen people. So we clearly defined through scriptures what the purpose of this enemy was going to be. We defined clearly through scriptures what this enemy is going to be doing or try to do to Yah's chosen people. And we clearly put a face on these enemies so that you can see clearly that these enemies are the nations, the other heathen nations that are outside the nation of Israel. Now, I know a lot of feelings are going to be hurt when they watch this video, but however, the Most High words never change. Yah has never dealt with any heathens throughout the scriptures. Never. He has not dealt with heathens then, and he still doesn't deal with them today. Because when Christ came on the scene, he was only coming for his own people. He only came to save his own people. In Matthew 15:24, he only came unto the lost house of Israel. So throughout the scriptures, it's very clear who our enemies are. Now that we know who our enemies are that are against the Most High's chosen people, you got to ask yourself the question, are these the enemies that Yeshua told us to love and forgive? Now remember what we read earlier in the scriptures, the purpose of the enemies of Yah's chosen people and what they would try to do, and how we would have to go to them in everything, in the want of all things. And the Bible distinctly, clearly defined them as our enemies. So you got to ask yourself the question, are these really the people that you see before you, the enemies of the Most High? Are these the ones that Yeshua told us to love and forgive? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. Because the Most High never dealt with the heathen nations. Any nation outside of Israel, the Most High never dealt with. He didn't deal with them then, and he doesn't deal with them now. Now, however, there are going to be a remnant of the heathens that are going to be in the kingdom, but they will be servants, according to the scriptures. Now, I did a lesson on that, and it's called, you can watch the video, it's called The Israelites Shall Possess the Remnant of Edom and the Heathens. Because you're going to have heathens who are going to cling to Israel, and they're going to be willing to serve Israel rather than being destroyed by the Most High. And that's throughout Scripture. You can read Isaiah 14 for one. But there will be a remnant of the heathens in the kingdom. So I don't want to make it sound like that all these heathens are going to be destroyed. Yes, a lot of them are going to be destroyed by the Most High for what they've done. But a remnant of them will be in the kingdom as servants, and they will not, I repeat, they will not be our equals, and they will not be called Israelites. Because there's only one chosen people that are on this earth, and it's going to always be that way forever. Now that we dealt with the enemies of Yah's chosen people, I want to deal with the next type of enemy, which is the enemies that Yeshua told us to love and forgive. But before we go there, I just want to show you a couple more verses of how the Most High feel about these heathen nations, these nations that are outside of Israel. So let's go there right quick. Let's go to 2nd Esdras chapter 6, and we're going to start at verse 54 through 57. And it says, And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. As for the other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. And now, O Lord, behold, these heathens, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be Lord over us and to devour us. This verse is very clear, Hebrews. It said that these heathen nations are like spittle, like a drop of water that falleth from a vessel. Now imagine if you have a big glass of water and a little small drop falls from that. You're not going to think nothing of that. That's the way the Most High thinks about these other nations. And then at the end it says that these heathen nations, who thou hast reputed as nothing, have begun to become Lord over us. See, that confirms what we read in Deuteronomy 28:48, that we would have to go to our enemies in the want of all things. It's plain and simple, brothers and sisters. Can't get around it. All right, let's go to Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 17. And it says, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing, and vanity. There you have it again, plain and simple. This is the way the Most High feels about these other nations. They are nothing in his eyes. Now, I know people that's caught up in this Christian insanity read certain texts thinking that, oh, God loves everybody. Everybody's going to go to heaven. Everybody's going to make it. Even the homosexuals, the transvestites, the transgenders, they're all going to heaven. Well, hey, I got news for y'all. Y'all getting ready to get a big wake-up call. And it's going to be a scary one for a lot of y'all. All right, let's get one more here. Psalms 147, 19 and 20. And it says, he sheweth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgment unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. Repeat that again. He hath not dealt so with any nation. For as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. Very simple, plain and straightforward. The Most High has not dealt with any other nations. And we were just talking about that in this lesson. The Most High is not dealing with the other nations outside of Israel. That's just plain and simple. It is what it is. I did not write the book. This book was written by our forefathers. The heathens never had anything to do with the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Nothing whatsoever. And even to this day, still don't. Nothing's changed. So where did this love everybody doctrine come from? Well, it sure didn't come from the word of the Most High. But I'll tell you where it came from. It came from a satanic doctrine called Christian insanity, which teaches to love everybody, teaches you to worship pagan holidays like Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, Halloween. It teaches people to break the Most High's commandments. It's a devil religion. That's what it is. I'm going to call it for what it is. It's a satanic religion. But it goes a little deeper than that. This whole thing goes all the way back to slavery, to our people. This Christianity stuff was instilled in our forefathers from the very beginning of their slavery. When our forefathers came over here as Israelites to America, they had a white Jesus shoved down their throats, told them that that was their God. They were whipped, beaten, raped. Their children were raped. The women were raped. And the slave masters told them no matter what happened to them, they still had to love them. They still had to love their slave masters no matter what. And the only way that you can get to the kingdom of heaven was that you just live long enough and then you die and then you can go to heaven. That's what these white devils did. They told our forefathers, they did all kind of horrible things to our forefathers. You mean to tell me that these are the enemies that the Most High told us to love and forgive? The very ones who oppressed us? During the 60s, the white liberals told our people that they had to go out in the streets and get bitten up by dogs just to show that they were faithful and to show that they can get equal rights. But what happened many years later? Fast forward to 2017. We are worse off than before the 60s. At least we had a lot of our own businesses back then prior to the civil rights. Our people were also told by these white liberals, these white devils, that they had to go into white restaurants, sit down, get beat up, get liquids poured over their head, get busted in the nose, so they can prove that they're equal, so they can prove that they can get equal rights. Yes, massa, we just want to eat with y'all. We just want to eat with the white people because we love y'all white people. We don't want to go into our black restaurants. Yes, master. We'll get our heads beat in for you, master. Yes, sir, master. We'll get our nose busted for you, master. We don't mind, master, because we're going to forgive you in the end, master. Sickening, y'all. Just sickening. But this was the condition of our people still today. Y'all remember this heathen devil that went into the black church in Charleston, South Carolina, and shot up those 9 elderly people? You know what? And what did these family members do afterwards? They forgave this devil. But I got news for this devil. There's a place for him. It's called the lake of fire. And I hope he burns for many years. Hebrews, our people are mentally sick. This whole love your enemy things came out of the Christian insanity movement. And that's why a lot of our people are destroyed. Now I know what it means when it says that I will put yokes of iron upon thee until you are completely destroyed. Boy, when those yokes of iron came off, our people, we just destroyed. And we're still destroyed to this very day. And that's why a lot of our people don't understand the Bible, because they only see it through the eyes of Christian insanity. But once you wake up, once people start waking up, and we are waking up, we're starting to see the word of the Most High through the eyes of our forefathers, and it's a whole different meaning when you look at it that way. When you see the word of the Most High through our forefathers, it's a completely different thing from night and day. That's why we need to wake up, Israel, and the Most High is waking up His people by the thousands. We are waking up so fast, and I'm telling y'all, when these heathens start realizing, catching wind, in which they are starting to catch wind, but once they catch the full wind, that we have realized who we are as a people, these same enemies that these people who are caught up in Christian insanity, talking about love your enemies, them very same enemies that you're loving are going to seek out to kill you, because those are not the enemies that the Most High told us to love. The Bible says, learn not the way of the heathen. Yes, these are the same heathens that are oppressing the people of the Most High from the very beginning, since 2,000 years ago, to this very same day. The same seed of the races of people who oppressed our forefathers are the same seed today who are oppressing the children of the Most High. And they're going to get their reward, because the time of the heathen is here. It is here. All right, so after what we discussed in the first portion of this lesson, number 2, this should be very clear what this is talking about. The enemies that Yeshua told us to love and forgive. This is probably a no-brainer for most of y'all. So we're going to get into it. All right, let's go to Matthew chapter 5 and verse 44. It says, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Now here's the thing, brothers and sisters. A lot of Christian insanity folks will read this, and automatically they'll think that it's talking about everybody, the whole wide world. But if you don't understand the Old Testament, you're not going to understand the whole concept behind this verse. Because first of all, Christ was with his disciples. And who dwelt in the land of Israel back in those days? It was so-called black folks, the Negroes. It was pretty much comprised of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And we know that the Holy Hamashiach was of the tribe of Judah. So the majority, the people who dwelt in the land back then were black people, or as many people say, dark-skinned people, or however you want to say it. But they were black people. So it was our forefathers, the Israelites, who dwelt in their own land during the time of Yeshua. But let's go to another verse. Let's see who Yeshua came here to save. Let's see what he was all about. Go to Matthew chapter 15, and we're going to read verse 24. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So it's clear that when the Holy Hamashiach came on the scene, he came only for his people. And guess what? After he ascended back to the kingdom, to heaven, his apostles carried out the same thing. That's why Paul knew where all the scattered tribes were. When Yeshua said back in Matthew to love your enemies and forgive them, he was referring to his own people, not the other nations outside of Israel, because Holy Hamashiach was not dealing with the heathen nations when he was on the scene. Neither were the apostles dealing with the heathen nations. I mean, think about it. Why would the Most High make a covenant with only Israel, and then in the New Testament, all of a sudden, the Most High is dealing with the heathen nations outside of Israel? It doesn't make sense. All that stuff comes from Christian insanity. The Most High has always dealt with Israel. No other nation that he's ever dealt with. He just dealt with Israel. So let's get a better meaning of the enemies within Israel that Yeshua came to save. Now, before I get into Jeremiah, I just want to say this. Now, you all know about the splitting of the 12 tribes. During the reign of King Solomon and his son and grandson, the kingdoms were split. You had the kingdom of Judah and you had the kingdom of Israel. The kingdom of Judah consisted of Judah, Levi, and Benjamin, and then the kingdom of Israel consisted the rest of the northern tribes. So when the split took place, they became enemies. And then down the road, it was prophesied in Hosea that the Most High gave the northern tribe a bill of divorcement because of their idol worship. And you can read that in the book of Hosea. But let's go to Jeremiah chapter 3. I'm going to read verse 8, and this is going to give us a better understanding of what happened. And it says, "And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away, and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot." So right here, Jeremiah is prophesying what would happen. And this was fulfilled in Hosea, because the northern tribes, they became so mixed with the people, with the idols during that time, that the Most High had to put them away. And so Judah had a lot of responsibility with that too, because they caused the northern tribes to worship those idols. And that was the envy that will remain unto this very day, until the Most High comes back and gathers his people. So the ones who were put away with the bill of divorce were the northern tribes. Those are the same ones that the Holy Hamashiach came to save, and the apostles. That's why Paul knew where all the scattered tribes were, the northern tribes. They were spread out throughout parts of Africa, Mesopotamia, and the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. They wouldn't call it Africa back then, but that's where they were. That's what the majority of the northern tribes were, because the camps of Judah were pretty much all in Israel. But there were some scattered tribes also throughout Israel as well. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 37. I want to read verses 19 and 20. And it says, "Say unto them, Thus saith the Lord Elohim, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand, and the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thine hand before their eyes." Now, Ezekiel is prophesying of what will become of the northern and southern tribes. They will be joined together. So this was the grafting in portion that took place during the time of Yeshua and the apostles. Those Israelites that were dwelling around Jerusalem, the places that Paul traveled to, those were Israelites. Those were the same northern tribes, Israelites, that were given a bill of divorcement by the Most High. They were being grafted back in. Now, this was also prophesied in Jeremiah chapter 42, that the southern tribes would be a light to the Gentiles. Gentiles meaning the Israelites who were given a bill of divorcement. So this is prophecy, y'all. This is clear throughout the scriptures. So by the time Yeshua came on the scene, and with the 12 disciples, this prophecy was being fulfilled right during that time and after. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 13. It says, "The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off," meaning his enemies. "Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim." Wow, this is amazing. This is all stemming from the split. Because remember, we read earlier, but because of the split, they became enemies. The Most High gave the northern tribe a bill of divorcement. So it was like, okay, the Most High was done with them, but they were, they were still his chosen people, but he gave them a bill of divorcement. So that means that they were considered as Gentiles, as strangers. So during the time of Yeshua and the apostles, we saw the grafting in taking place. And now the Most High's people are waking up all over the place. This is amazing. This is an amazing fulfillment. And it's going to come a time where the two tribes will never, ever be separated again. And if y'all want to go back and read Ezekiel chapter 37, it talks about that. It says these two tribes would never be split up again. Never. The Most High made that promise. I pray that you see it, Israel. I pray that this lesson was edifying for you and that you clearly understand who the enemies of the chosen people of the Most High are and the enemies within Israel. So when you read that verse in the New Testament, or when you read when Yeshua says, love your enemies and forgive them, he's talking about within our own nation of people. That's it, plain and simple. It's dealing with everything within our own nation. We are not to hate our brothers. We are not to hate our sisters within the nation of Israel. So I pray that you got a good understanding. I pray that you got fed. And that's what I want to try to do, is be able to feed the sheep. And it's always an honor. It's always an honor to serve my brothers, my Israelite brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, we are waking up. The Most High is waking his people up all over the earth. And I said earlier, we're waking up by the thousands. And I just want to say it's been an honor being able to serve my Israelite brothers and sisters. And I'm going to continue to do so as long as I got breath in me. I've made that vow to the Most High. We're living in some exciting times, brothers and sisters. We're seeing so much stuff happen. We're living in a time where we could see the breaking of the sky of our Elohim. That's some exciting times. But we have to endure, saints. We got to keep enduring. I know it gets hard. I know it gets tough. We have to fight every day to preserve our faith. It's a struggle. And this is no easy walk for us, because many of us are scattered. Some of us don't have people to worship with. We're alone. We're all over the place. But one day, we're going to be together, brothers and sisters. We're going to come together. We're never, ever going to depart. So with that being said, I say shalom and stay strong.